I want to just bring up one theoretical point that we had not addressed before moving on to questions of methodology and so on, which is the question that you briefly alluded to, which is Keynesian macro theory. And in some sense, it's classical economics and Keynesian theory are not very good bedfellows, but you seem to take from Keynes certain things, but reject, if you will, some other traditions that are there in the Keynesian approach. So could you speak a little bit about that? What is it that you find appealing?
Yes,
what you found?
In order to understand how Keynesian economics work theoretically, I of course read everything I could, all the greats, but I also apprenticed myself to Wynne Godley at the Levy Institute so I could understand how a prominent and best Keynesian macro modeler worked. Because for me, always, the theory has to be derived from understanding of the real, not from what Wicksell said or Keynes said or indeed what Marx or anybody else said. And it seemed to me that one thing that was crucial was that the idea of a newly created purchasing power, which comes in the era of fiat money, but it comes before that also, that capitalism responds very well to money in the hands of people who can spend it. And that idea actually comes from Tuck and from Marx's comments on Tuck when he says, well, when gold was discovered in California, as it spread all the way from California to the East Coast and then to Europe, that gold had a significant impact on the level of output and employment in Europe. So there is already the idea that even in Marx, there's the notion that aggregate demand can make a big difference. Then what is the difference? The difference is that in Marx and in Keynes, investment is linked to profitability. And so you have to ask the question, what is the relationship between pumping up a system and its effect on profitability? Now, I noted when I was reading Keynes and Kalecki that Kalecki's original construction of the theory of effective demand made no reference whatsoever to imperfect competition. In fact, logically speaking, that construction doesn't require markups or monopoly power. Kalecki did that later, and then he put the two together. Keynes, on the other hand, insisted that his work was within the theory of competition. So now I have the two great effective demand thinkers saying that their theory is in competition, and I have a framework for competition. So it was my task to sort of fill out that part of the map. And put it very briefly, what I concluded is that effective demand can pump up the system. If it pumps up the system to the point where wages begin to rise relative to productivity, that means the wage share is rising, but the profit share is the opposite of the wage share. That means it's falling. That means that effective demand taken to a certain level could make profitability fall. Where profitability falls, then on Keynes's own argument, the rate of growth of the system from the private sector will slow down, and the employment pickup from growth will slow down, and you may get unemployment coming back. And I found that this provided an explanation for the 1980s, where Keynesian, 70s rather, where Keynesian policy was in force. They pump up the system because the unemployment rate was 5%. They could bring it down. But as they did that, it began it fell first and you pump it up, then it would come back up, so they'd pump up the system more, then it would fall, then it would come back up, and they were getting increasing inflation, and that was a stagflation. And what I wanted to show empirically is that if you approach it from the connection of effective demand and profitability, then many things fall into place. That, the theory of inflation, the theory of wage profit dynamics, all of that at the aggregate level become consistent theoretically as well as empirically.